Okay, let's talk about business models. Just give me 1 second here so I can start the timer. Business models. Business models are very key these days. To jump to the punchline, it's in business models and business model innovation where most of the value is being created these days, especially in new startups, whether it be a Facebook or Google or you name any startup. Basically, they didn't invent anything new. They didn't invent search. They didn't invent posting of pictures. They didn't invent games. But what they have done is they've modified, amended, improved the business model. And the better we're able to understand how that process is and how that process relates to value creation, the better off we're going to be. Okay. Why does business models matter? Now, this is from the article that hopefully you have read by now. This is the basically the punchlines from that article. Who is the customer, and what does what is the customer? What does the customer value? Okay, we've talked about this before. The importance of understanding who the customer is, especially when we went through customer space. So understanding who the customer is important, but we need to understand more precisely is not only who the customer is, but what does the customer value? What does the customer value? And in creating a business model, if we can understand what the customer values, we can create a system that delivers that value to him or her, or it. How do we make money from business? We're going to go over the definition of what a business model is, but ultimately it's how do we deliver service and how do we make money from it? Okay, precisely. How do we do that? How can we deliver value to the customer at an appropriate cost? So if we understand what the value is, and we also understand how we make money from the business, but we can't deliver that value to the customer at a cost that we can afford, we have nothing. Writing a new story. This is the aspect of the business model innovation. If we can create a model that's innovative in some sort of way, we can help destroy an industry in a Schumpeterian sort of way. We can help revolutionize an industry, change paradigms, those sorts of things. Create new markets, have markets to ourselves, at least temporarily, in a temporary monopoly sort of way. Better than existing alternatives. Okay? Better than existing alternatives. This idea of being better, I just want you to get this point. It's being better is a kind of a subjective and hard to kind of understand sort of thing. The question for us is not necessarily can we be better than existing alternatives, are our customers buying our products and services? Okay, if we enter the market that is already there and we start gaining market share, it's clear that customers are valuing our product or service. We're matching their interests and needs in terms of value. We need to figure out how to continue to do that. Making the numbers add up. The numbers meaning the cost and the price, so that we can make a profit and cover all of our costs. And finally, is tweaking on the fly based on feedback. Okay, this is one of the most important things. It's not necessarily about who's first in the market, and we'll talk about that probably another time. It's not who's first. In large part, it's who has the better ability to get feedback, to understand the feedback, and reincorporate that feedback into a next version, a new version, version 2. version 2.1, version 2.2, version 3. Because we never actually are going to really know, again, what the customer wants. We think we know, but we don't know until we get our product and service out there. And once we get it out there, we get real feedback, then we can reincorporate that into a better product. And the better we do that, the better off we're going to be. Types of innovation. When we talk about innovation, or when innovation is generally discussed, it almost always focuses on technology innovation. It focuses on product and service innovation. It rarely focuses on process innovation or business model innovation. And these process innovations and business model innovations, as I mentioned before, these are where the new giants are being built. Henderson Marowitz, H&M. Process innovation. How do they see a trend? How do they absorb the trend? How do they make the trend come out through their logistics system and get it in the store in a couple of weeks? It's a process innovation. Walmart. Okay, it's a process, again, logistics. Federal Express, all of these process innovations. So again, process innovation, business model innovation. Okay, this is not to say that technological innovation and product service innovation is not fun, cool, and exciting, and there's money to be made there. Not saying that at all. This is just a quick couple charts. This is from IBM, just to give you an idea of what business model innovators are doing. This is operating margin in excess of competitive peers, annual growth rate over 5 years. And if you see, just look in terms of scale, product and service market innovations, very, very little growth rate in excess of competitors. Operations innovators even have a negative. They're making less money than competitors. It's the business model innovators who are the ones that are taking the lead. And here's another survey, again, by IBM. It's citing some of the benefits that innovators of business models are reaping. Cost reduction, flexibility, strategically, focus and specialization, rapid exploitation of new markets and new products and services, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think that's about enough selling on that. Here are some examples of business model innovators. These companies got their major push from business model innovations. From business model innovations. McDonald's, as you know, restaurants. They didn't invent restaurants. They didn't invent the hamburger. They didn't invent French fries. They didn't invent a shake. Okay, but what they did innovate in is in the standardization of a restaurant service. The standardization of restaurant service. And it isn't that they were the first to do that, but they were, and perhaps continue to be, the best at what they do. Microsoft. You probably don't know this, but Microsoft actually was a business model innovation. In the early 70s, Bill Gates wrote a letter. It was a letter to the community of programmers, and it was published in a popular science magazine at the time. And at that time, he suggested something very radical. Very radical. So you need to understand what happened. This is pre-PC, pre-personal computer, and computers for the most part were limited to very large companies. That when you buy the computer, they would design the system to run on that computer to do the service that you needed. And generally, the service had to do with payroll, those sort of things, or something very scientific that required, quote unquote, number crunching. So you brought the computer and the software, and the software really didn't exist, but they programmed it to make it work for your particular situation. So software was free, basically, because you couldn't buy it independently of the computer. Well, Gates advocated that software shouldn't be free, and that you should pay for software. And if software was a paid product or service, that there would be many more applications out there which would drive the sale of additional computers. A radical thought that people should actually pay for software. Dell. Okay, Dell, famous example of a business model innovation. You know, they certainly didn't invent computers. They didn't invent PCs or anything like that. But what Michael Dell did when he was in his dorm room at University of Texas, he did a couple things. Okay, the first thing is a delivery. It's a delivery innovation. What he did is that instead of creating a retail store to sell computers. Now, you understand at this particular time, personal computers were starting to grow, and you would buy them in retail stores and computer stores and those sorts of things. In fact, it was funny because computer stores were at one time a really big growth business themselves. So he said, well, why can't we sell computers direct? And his market wasn't individuals, it was companies. So his innovation was selling direct to businesses. On top of that, there was a production model innovation, in that he would not produce the computer until he had actually sold it. So those two things in combination created Dell as we know it today. You know, and what's interesting as well is, as Dell got bigger and bigger and bigger to be one of the largest companies in the world, it continued to experiment with business model innovation. I mean, just think about what Dell does and can do. So it wants to create a new computer. So, in the old days, you would create a new computer, and then you would try to sell it. But Dell doesn't do that. What Dell does is it changes the website and says, hey, we have a new computer available that has 16 gigs of RAM and 5 terabytes of memory and blah, 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 blah. But they don't have that computer. It's just a couple of bits on their web server. But they put it out there, and lo and behold, people buy it. And what do they do when they buy it? Well, what they do is that they send Dell an order, and then Dell outsources the production to its production chain that starts to build it. And in X number of days, X number of weeks, you get the computer delivered. And if you're a company, you're probably on a 30-day payment. So you pay Dell for your computer in about 30 days. Now, what's interesting about this is that they're playing a revenue model innovation with this. And how does that work? Well, it works like this. Dell doesn't pay its suppliers for 45 or 60 days. So look at how this works. You order a computer, and you get the computer delivered to you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks after that, so a month from when you order it, you pay. Dell doesn't pay its suppliers for 60 days. So for a month, Dell has your money. Okay, and what does it do with your money? It doesn't keep it in a sack. It doesn't keep it in a bag. What it does, of course, it's invested in short-term securities. So Dell is earning interest on your money. It's called playing the float. It's what banks do. They do less of it now than they used to, but that's what banks do. That's what financial institutions do, and that's what Dell does. So let's think about this in kind of the extreme. In the extreme case, Dell could sell computers at cost and still make a profit, because they could sell it at cost, and their profit would come from the interest that they would earn on that float. And the float being the difference between the time they get the money and the time they actually have to pay their suppliers. Okay, well, that 15 minutes went very fast. Let's take a quick break here, and I'll come back and talk about some of these other examples. Whoops.